Sangaya Namo Guru Be Namo Bondaya Namo Dharamaya Namo Sangaya Gandhya Laja Gengya Toka Rakra Shosa Ponde Chodze Chege Gyabo Gengya Losandra Seda Chepa Nedre Shesu Denge Namga Sende Bede De Jeze Lama Gebe Zonkai Dalo Debe Senam Shincho Do Demba Jeje Kelja Joso Sheja Jenke Jebe Lode Do Kezan Genjo Leshe Son Dabe Bege Lame Zebe Donde Dembe Dende La Chaze Yin Che Nazo Medo Deshen Dobe Nase Desha Sham Ye Je Jen Jazo Sanaim Shi Joy Jelai Cheba Ye Dime Dine Saba Lunga Ye Me Ye Chi Ye Bon Kebra Domba Sum Ye Mede Nene Jebe Tabe Sosra Neme and Dre Mande Dobla Che Ye Pampe Denjo and Jejen La Jen Zaba La Daja Sambaya Tabe Yera Jeze Lama Namba Ikena Chewe Kala Chenze Tenje Ne Jedra Zambe Deje Zema La Zaje Chege Charba Abdo Namda Yeze Yin Le Shimba Sonjo Kolo Chano Minga Ya Dame Nango Sobo Rabba Jesede Bardo Mino Dembash Anya Jinia Sabe Gewan Tenda and Joa Kunla Gamben Kebara Jeze Losa and Daba Ye Dembe Nimbo Rindo Sheje Meme I Zeve Chen Jere Jimmy I Kimbe one boy jumping Evomal Jomze Sanve Dai Kanje Gebe Zoje Zonga Losa and Dabe Shabla Sowa and Meme Zeve Chen Jere Jimmy I Kimbe one boy jumping Yan Debo Male Jomze Sanve Kanje Gebe Zoje Zonga Ba Losa and Dabe Shabla Sowa Meme Azeve Chen Jere Me I can be one boy jumping. Evo Male, Jomze Sanve, I can't cheer and keep it, Zoje and Zonka. Losa and Dabe shall lie so one, the Paldan Save, Lama Rimpoch. Dagi Chu be me den shul. Kajen Shemboe Gone Chison, de Juzon to get Mojo Zedos. Paldan Save, Lama Rimpoch. Dagi Nikra be me den shul. Kajen Shemboe Gone Chison. Chodan Timoe Mojo Zedos, Paldan Save, Lama Rimpoch. Naye Ningra Peme Densho, Kadia Jembe Gone Jesun, Sancho Nimbo Bardo Dembara Shoy, Masa Mjeme Ashera Pare, Magia Mega Namke Ngo, so so ran de yi she che ye de son ge ve yom la cha zi lo te ya ta ya ga de para sam ga de bo de so ha te ya ta ga de para sam ga de bo de son te ya tha ga de para sam ga de bo de so ha ge re an ton tha ge jo shi wa da me te ne me gen dan de wa天把这些偏松做就，大些点家点的，我也啥些别也些也穷些也没也多也长，人也让也脸些也年的也也把的。三界也是也多也灭也得也瓦也，这个也难到也是了，就把来说也到也古罗热那门的了，看那呀大呀没。就当做个叫南来，讲求巴多大呢，就是。大概渐渐给别做南给着了偏见上街着不容易说，就当做给着南来讲求不多的你就做，大概就给别做南给着了偏见上街着不容易说。
现在他们也都投下他那个。杨大我做的生意恐怕是不今年要讨不下，第一期的才没学3年的。
On behalf of all the mother sentient beings, may I able to generate the highest motivation. With this motivation, may I able to listen these teachings. So please generate the motivation first. So before I explain, allow me to read a couple of pages as an oral transmission.
你这女不叫多呢，到底呢，到我全部那样的也不念呢，老不是工作这个上汤不着不弄的呢，请我接我当工接我你，马西别等于的定在上面呢，我这些不得些不你呢，对吧？估计。是没多别的吧，但吧就不没说过个这个天朝这是鸟不是说也太把有那情况影响。这边不是同源社家有别的的就没那像那天天木巴都希望你们这边没这边当地那边的那。结果我的单不少，我的那正常别人不当的，人不当的。这样人差别，日本我当的吧，我都当的些吧，那谁叫有叫，我些这边你这个了的，好像绿你们讲不，好像绿你讲，把你。现在讲你讲吧呢，你这有你这有新鲜气味，我这东北气味。세와 매도 레도 재미 세와 매도 챙겨봐도 레도 잡아건데 영어 마선에나 마선에 담을人比참정现的新各位先生 친구들의 등에 제가 와서 보는 거 로로전로 고미 tombaje나 그거 중지 대반나네 슈바제와라 저러디에 리바냐모조 니가나 다게 심도베 네베지라시 tomba제 보는 거 Jemtavada Barashada Deseno Gubajongo, Jimbam Deva Pamashina, Luatanasime, now the Devi, Shibajava Nami, Chingua, Chanya Banivisi, similarly, Panyamjo, Ju, Bani, Kawashi, the Teza, Yama D and Jabara, D and Jabba Sanji ship. Sanji Shimze Nali Sumba Deda Give Show Mombasa Toy. Jim the Juba the Shadam Gubaka Chubby, never Tony, Zomba de Zomba de Pandi. So I don't Jonathan, not the show you, young Shabduli. Bebe Juno, Govanjon Joration, Tilan, the Shibajawa, the Umar Juba, Yakana, no da, Yegan. Yanikana, dog is Mundubani, Geshe, so she within Java, Shendi, Bebe. Jim the Jews about Joanna and Sim Gurgin, Yan Joey, John Joadi, John B. Zoali, Jang Seven never me la Tedarati, never ye, Dobby, baby, Jubisim, Legis, Zoatan, Journey, maybe Jivaloso. George Semen, now the Shumishin, she showed Shamachi, John Jury, she saw some Rotina. Chinguji Tani, Dante, Omarodova, Jibaranam, Joey. You go, she has some baby, Jezabella, Rava, Sheba, Shona, Kajuji, and baby, said. Tele, Shoya was some sweetie, things do be made by the sailor Shindy, the 7 Thomas. Some say, Misho, but the Donje, Chijagovani, Papa Tomage. Tell a Joba Shevadaya, the Joba Shavalani, dim the Juve, either Sheva, you the share. Simoneve Tabu, Simon Tabuni, Jivacas of Tetasoji, Guna Tabule. She was all on a Mipati, Tamus over shadow, no Gun Bavalia. Kenny, she was Jenny Jan, Jenny Mivati, same you shed the Sewaton, your Tetaso, here also. Send the Sewaton here soon be you saw. Samala message, Lloyd, the Shady says you were done by the Sewa in the Tempeting, the Shendu Geshe. Dimashibara, Jamabi, Tadu, Gomusha, the Shivas of the Jing, Cheru, Dova. Chuno, so, J. Shadow, the Sheriff Dudu, so. Chung Shedu, Mambo, Dova, Dengi, Tembo Yuba, Lumba Shiva, Nangu. Tedanga Shiva, the table, 7 Mivala, Tea, Mivali, Parazin, means you shall. Sharashi, Sharashi, Tobo, Jedu, Rum, Denny, shall go in. Cornebavale, Tedder, Kung, David, Baba, Semishani, Betty, Shishi, Judy Semishaba, Shaw, Sheti, Yawanini, Shani, similar, that Chavaja, the me was a similar, but Zeta, wounded, Shin, wounded, Shiru, number show, number 7, number, number in some young to a double show, here, Dear things, Tangani, the Tommy, the Lavanishi, Savi, ngara tar ni me ni ta me ni no shingu kondu那经过空中送到这么些我的的了，像那好像同对，满一好像什么样，满一把的小山上些我也弄我都这么我没修的，修的俺什么修灯俺什么些灯呢？马西藏呢这些那这些那老的，俺这里呢俺这了呢别有多希望的个吧有的到别个吧有多，他这里需要他这心里可是的，是看劳动的他，人家的劳动的差不些，人家。dewa jako boshe te yegyur yabu mena ene diu marse kiji te dila bezo ene hini de ko dewa yara watin ma hiya shi da hini na hiyares.
So actually the Geshe roughly read the transmission from volume number 3 page 29 I think from the sixth I think completely getting rid of through thought of desire, and then I think until the page 35, somewhere in the middle. And here, actually, Geshe want to roughly highlight about that we are on the topic of serenity, Shine and Hakthong, as you know, the topic on the philosophical debate and those things on the is quite harder. So that's why we're trying to touch base on the easier part, even though it's tough for me. But we are on right now. On the serenity and insight.
어디 다들 하다디 신이错的很多是，다들 신이 무시 없는的来的哇，现在就是这个路少了，是的呀，因为工作忙着呢，因为种的嘞，等于接头嘛嘞，现在种的嘞是种的也少过嘞，因为养到不能点过嘞，现在我这里下，种的这个路少了。他这里呀，因为劳动这么开始也是哪是，世界劳动的这单位的是他忙不也是吧？我先把房里边的对的人没到把下班呐，前面就是讲没接，有些前面那些云去到我们往通年是，里边生讲没。里边这么有列为是，你这女不叫我同年是，他天年当我去不有那娘的，18年的，6月了公布上去，街上同步找不到我是，他的讲的是的，他看见的是我的，可是希望碰里边对的是呢，先把这呢，你没把人家送出去呢，假为呢。ene tilla borisi semne ja yongu mari sem ene gwebe oni dogres ta khaje da demne me to shabal shwe jo se je me je khaje demna ene jo yo mar de ene del ya de ene sem dungu mar yem logres goshi che ne ja tu tobe tu to mo to ne rigbe sing chang me rigbe de ma ya lebe se ne je nyubo jo thon ne se tham de ne da nga chen bo yin no nyang de se nge ba yin ni le ba ra lo gom ba ra ji se sam thong ka sa ke song to bu ro ba na wo se de da kha ji se da di shi wo da pe ne hi ne se ya de ding yi se mi wa ne ya ta da ra wa se da di se da tel 제바 시나 이제 세미관 제지니 말와 셰즈 이제 제바 시지분디 세미도 거라미고 가리샤 너 대가나 샤마도 디샤나 이제 파 소소 때나 니자 유베서 주 통고로 어디 티아오레스 저 레버라 곰라스 히워레스 레버서 데리 심마드메샤 심피게 다가스 뇨도르 샤니 뇨도 샤는 거비게 그거밖에 용어요. 건지다. 그 니사를 소리 샤워 거로. 제가 그거 용어여서 어디시도 가지고 있는데 어디 다디 시원래용에서 시원해 본 거 뭐시네. 아니 레버라고 네 고바랍실라니 아니 저저 당아 쉐부 쉐부 이시. 세네 아니 계산도 로버 나오세. 요 제가 된데서 다 룩주를 드려요. 다 건지. 예선 토부스 다디베 단다 사대니 쉐바다 드서 문다 비기 신이 누야게 에디베기 당아를 켜버지 쉬우지 인스. 어 된데지 아니 그래서 예선 토부 로버 나오스. 다 찍들이 눈주지.
So right now the about practicing serenity and insight. Firstly, before prior to that, like why that we had to practice serenity or shine is firstly because of the practicing shine or serenity. It help us to clear our faults and clear our negativities, and because of concentrating on the object of meditation and then finding the faults and then and the benefit. So it will eventually clearing slowly all the faults and then finding the true value and meaning of the meditation. And also with these, like by practicing on serenity, it helps us to focus and then try to control our mind so that we can be able to use our mind wisely towards the right direction. That's why the more we engage and practice into serenity, it will help us to minimize the negativities of faults, because you are trying to control your mind not to engage or fall into the wrong path or the negativities. That's why it will eventually slowly minimize our faults and negativities. And this is the reason that serenity is very important aspect of our practice, because it helps us to clear the faults and help us to control and then minimize all these things. But some of them normally says that in order to practice, you don't have to focus into the object of meditation, and then because it's too much to focus so deeply into the object of meditation, you don't have to. You can just vaguely meditate on any object just like that, without any analyzing, without any focusing into object of meditation. Sometimes they call that even laziness, like you don't have to work hard, like laziness, like just sit down and just contemplate on just anything and just be like that. And so this sometimes some non-Buddhist practitioner try to encourage that, and sometimes they feel that this is very fortunate to have this opportunity to practice that just like that, without focusing, without controlling your mind, just let it be, and eventually that leads us to like laziness or lethargy or like so that's how that the non-Buddhists try to encourage on that.
정도 간데 쇼문이 세는데니 치원제바도 곰제바니 마시베타민데 싫어왔다 곰도 쇼원 이 곰마시니 쇼원라 곰 큐니 이 곰고레스 가르제 띵인지들라 야 아니 비게 쳐버지 껴와도 가려고 체주되고 내가 띵인지 좀이 응아시에바 따라서 다시 단다 내내 사den시야 쳐버진데고 고스다 세제 응아르다 미과 내 인도고 거라 다 간제 다다디지도 이 사르스를 소리지가 애니 스미케도 마로제 빅바 셀라마스 소리시 dos 디고로 제가 디시디 틀이야 디 시원리고로 제가 디야 심 나자메 심 거기 침보스거다 나르세나 심 침보스디서는 왜 컨제지를 하고야 비 정부도 요로다가 심 심보시다도 세 어디 드레스고 가지 가라이나 가가 카드고도 하고야 드레지 심 침보스 미발베 속셔물이 쓰기 간지 스미저베 네자때 바지고 미조고 제가 딩이 주면서 에네 그게 미발에 네자지고 쓰는 펜도 말지 네자지고 쓰는 데 다다 대셔버다 시원하셔버라 Kete teta tela sim nyumu ba sim nyumu sim nyok nyok bor songye teba yena xiwan yin jang. Timme ba sim tangbe seja yeba dingi di jemi yinu nyam do se dire da dire se dewa ta ti chi di digi mare tel dingi dire gur se yonjo khaji kora deva do shin ta dire. Kete teta tela ene sim nyok nyok bo shen pa nyok to shira me se. Jida te sebo yeba she. Sim nyok nyok bo se kare sim me se wa ra. 태바 유나 있는 생활에도 그 태바 말이셔도 그 비고 따다 되고 그랬어. 뒷매번 통해 세자 여비 땡이지 주면은 되는 묵바도 시원이 마시베 땀도 나오에서 내는 제 어디 때문에 셔서 되다 다다 심미바다 네 시원하게 가르쳐서는 미발 심상님도 뇨뇨고 가서 여기서 하죠 말에 심 첨보면 욕기세야죠. 욕기세야 될 가르쳐 그래 거기서 될 되시 거지. 가르쳐. 묵바. 시원하지도 잘 가르쳐 시원하지 땡이지 비게 비발 매주도 잘 에네 비 세자 여봐. 비 땡이지 뭐다 체매버 소리 요로 어디래지 시원하시 거라. 시원 참으셔야 돼. 어디지 거라. 세다 마지에 담는 나에서 되는 제 어디 때문에 쇼오세 자 신구 체버다 in the Tuzodi in the world hearing is a word.
So the reason that why they they encourage on like not focusing, not concentrating into the object of meditation, and it's just like you can meditate without analyzing, without focusing. You can be just lazy and just sit and meditate. And sometimes this is called that this is the fortunate opportunity to practice. But in this, the fall, how that the real practitioner can find a falls in this kind of meditation is in this, normally it's kind of like a mental cloudiness. Is mixed together, and then like they misunderstand between the mental cloudiness and the meditation, and they think that this is the true meditation. And when we have this kind of mental cloudiness, then eventually that your object of meditation become more blurred, that you cannot see the object of meditation clearly, and then it's like in other words, it's like a dull-minded, like you cannot focus clearly, you can see the object clearly. It's like clouded in the darkness, and then so that's why because of that not seeing the object of meditation clearly, then so eventually that we're called in order to practice properly, to see the clearance through this mental cloudiness, you have to, we call the concentrate your consciousness into the object of meditation, or with this pure consciousness. And it's like you are piercing through the darkness and then see the real object. Like it's like you're poking through the darkness and see the real object of meditation. And only this, through this, the piercing through with pure focus and concentration, that you can be able to see and can practice meditation. And so this, in this part, like sometimes like the we call the mental cloudiness, or cloudiness is even like sometimes we call those who are not in enthusiasm. It's just like a laziness, like because of that don't want to work hard, but just sit and meditate without analyzing. So eventually this mental cloudiness will overpower you, and then we end up with all kind of laziness, snoring, sleeping. And then mental, like we call again again like mental wandering, or sometimes we call it's like drown into our own negativities or faults. So sometimes that mix together, and this, like, because of mixing with all kind of faults and negativities, so sometimes like we misunderstand that, oh, this must be the true practice. So that's why, like, in order to explain about these two, lethargy and laziness or mental wandering, will be explained below. So
this is what the Kasa. Then dream job require not never. She no say you jump, go here. Nature checkala. There has a lady jangwana, nature you jump, she say. And north of the Seja meadows. That the Seja Narsi, the Seja Narsi, this was Lord, the Miguel Bagaji, because the Suk Chamber, the Seja Narsi, and the poverty Jida. The last village, the chick they took to Port Langsal Sagra. And Tamboju, you call to the town of Satu or Judiroa, or the Seja Nars and the Silver, simply you Suk get a shiver, the dedication. She said that Kaji Nayishi didn't. Seja yor the Seja Marsa yo Maris what said the temple of yo Maris, Nar meadows. And a dim trabana, dim trabada, no traba, counting Mazo, Tamu remember something, she didn't get that is the thing in the Jomi Duala, it be Yoda Chevos, Triba Mons in any Shung to the Yoda Shudua, or this or other. Casa. She did so that any Tamu Rainbow said you are, Tamu Rainbow said the Shayalia and Gangeshan Sura. So the hidden year gave shares. Chingu to a thing in the Jago, Lagonis, Sheda. So that Chingu to a thing in the Jumi Jago, the Lagoon, and Lobo Zita committee, some Jasi. So, but then a Govan Jung Jurking, Tebon and the Shimbajawan, dear Rivajan Jukana. Dog Sulupa and Jihi, he song this, that will be a song short at our shed. But thing is the dog house you do. And Jet and the young woman do it, later than the young woman do. She had the babies you gang in those heads, the Gajeta. The Ribanyan Yiga, Yigana, dog sim to buy any Jihi geese. Or this that direct be Shaka, Tata, the young mother in the. She had a ticket. Thing is, the Jimmy said, do I need a race or this way?
So that's why, in order to practice serenity, like it has to be like it's just like you have to just hold perfectly with proper mindfulness. So like that's what Geshe is trying to explain about. For example, like when you hold the cup, and if you hold the cup like just like that without mindful, like it may fall easily from your hand and then may break it. But with your proper thought, with pure mindfulness, that you hold the cup properly, and then so it won't fall off. Also, you're not grasping too hard. Also, no, you're not like not being mindful. So you have to hold it with the proper intention. So same thing like that. Like when you are focusing into the object of meditation in order to practice serenity, that you have to be so pure, mindful, that it has to pierce through that the darkness of laziness and mental wandering, that you perfectly hold that object of meditation to achieve the realization. So that's why most of the non-Buddhist practitioner and they always think that it's very difficult to practice serenity, because they think that if you really hold it properly, then it's very difficult to hold the object of meditation. If you don't hold like that and just practice just with laziness, then you cannot get it at all. So that's why it's always very difficult. So that's why there's lots of, like you can see, explained in many schools of thought, how difficult it is in order to practice serenity with the rightly or perfectly, in order to pierce through the object of meditation to practice. That's why it will be difficult to practice.
Somebody be dream travel that I did think it. Somebody be dream travel there. dream trouble, this is not good. That so much dream trouble, citizen, subs ya pong tombo. Anyway, some shook sorry, down and the civil medical the manga you go. The similar to Shagan and Conan Chagar, the medical mediate or decades. Sheta, go on you go, it's dimna. The dream at the pang you live, sim no the devious, Shumbajawa, no, Chingu training, China, but nevis, sim requiem. Young Jude, you were never go here at home, said zero. She thought, didn't tell any because dream but the punk you learned that Madame relation in Shashana. In the same known day, Shubakia, she has a selam for me, because the same new daughter shower that was your contact. She go attend any China by Shabby. Sim Rigbanyam you ever go, she was home, Rigbanyam you rig was not the mare, was the rig me the rigs or that. She did they tell it, they marry, take Morris said, the rig said, take it, said, when it has not taken the shumate, and she had covered the cigarettes.
So, this is the reason, like, it's difficult to practice if you don't know how to balance in between this lethargy and laziness and all this mental wandering or mental cloudiness. So that's why, that's why if you try to focus too much into, like, normally it's a common sense, like when you try to concentrate too much into something, then more things you'll think in your mind. The mind will think more. Like the more you focus into object of meditation, it will make you think more. So that's how it's like nature of a mind. The more you try to focus into object, and it will help. It will like lead you to think more things. And at the same time, if you let it loose and try to be lazy, then eventually the mental cloudiness and then laziness, and then your object of meditation is never clear. So then it will become more blur, and you cannot see the object of meditation. So either side, it's like you have to be very skillful in order to practice. That's why if you're not balancing between these things, it will be really difficult to practice serenity.
What did I even the courage and the home shadows at the user? Teen Java Sanji Sheva Zeva Lacy, that silly. Somebody did give a shoulder. Number 2, Grim Juba Chai, Shedam. Gobaji and Yeva Tony, Zombab the Pandi. So what on you sim known to Shumshin? She soon be sauce, which is that country Tadati, Jeremojima Singly Jani, and the corner of the day, Shadu Koran Georges or Tini Baktumdua. So not as a young Shadu less, baby and you go over Jung Jishin. Live to Lunani, Shibaja, dear Omar Jova, Yigana. Dog seemed to be a Jihi, his song sing. Say, young Jotter, the Jibari Redwa, Kanji Kanta, that did on that correct here, Zena, Doctor of Sina, seemed to be Hazan Luet of Maiba, Hazan Dimitra of Maiba, Chimuk, Rumbush Goris. That seemed the Hazan Dimitra go back getting into my Hazan Luet and Chimaji, Sheta, Chingo the Chawaj Gura, thinking Jimmy Dwell, which is that she had the thing she had the Kawundus, young Geshe as he read. Omar said that dear Omar Dova, ye gana. Dog seemed to be Jihis, Omar said, Zakare, Jome, there were Kanji, tying in the Chawa said, Kanji, Omar said, Kanji, Tabby short, the Omar Shiva. Here's almost Karsa. He teen Daway, Anjati Daway, she didn't be very dim day, George Zomana, Sim good, you enjoy. Yuanji, Jumbe so legend. Yuanji, Jumbe so legend. Sim never Milas, he the Hazan Vega, Sim Newtona, in the Miguel Sim Naja Nigumaris. Tetati Niva Ni Bess and Tin Dove Sher, Viver Jube Sim Lewis, so a town, Jenny, maybe you Jevala so basic. 경지 심낭도 shum신 신화제 용안 유외세 심서 해서 송소 시제들다 디저와 들라도 예바티즈야 대다 예바 니 임베스 디다다 르자와다 애니카르 렘자와티 인시나 예바레스 쫑레스 틴도베시디 비베주베심 르징 조아당 제는 미베 유 제바 라소베스 다 조아당 인 미데지야 닌가요라 어디서거리 라사비 쫑지 심농도雄心 雄安结心 용주비 세워송소스 다 거기 디기다다 내대신에 인 제르부시 네 공장 시 양저지르비 도다지를 본 거. 거기 땡이 들어갈 가래. 심야 점저와 많이 봐. 뢰저와 많이 봐. dimlu rem바지 고레스. 어디 dimlu rem바 고레스. 디 공대 대장 거다.
So this is the reason that when you are practicing serenity, like Rinpoche is repeating again and again that if you try to let it loose your mind, then eventually your mental wandering and mental cloudiness will overpower, and then you cannot practice properly. If you try to let your mind more tight and more tight to squeeze yourself, force yourself to practice to practice serenity, again then it will make you more thought in your mind, and it will try to distract you. So that's why in order to practice properly, you cannot hold too tight or let it too loose. Like you had to be in a perfect mode to practice. So this is the reason that in order to practice, like you had to have a balance in between. So this is the reason that Rinpoche is trying to quote again and again that how important in order to practice serenity with the perfect balance in mind training.
어디지데 신고도 타인도 제외서 오모드바 세난자 ini rigba nyamji sina sonda jibari word rigba se tewa dero tingi dingi kau she songbe se leba rab shebe se chona de gaji jeme be cher cheda dele shwa jawa songbe chuti dingi de joba mirba se lo se cha do don rab de sina da ini leba rab she gum rab se de tan thig bundus ti thigena da ko kalesera jamu gar albiwa pasemte Any Kasama Mata Takara Shasha Nico, don't hear your mother. She did Lela Bores. She did the thing in the Dukibari. She did the Shabdu Zolia, thing in the Jimmy Doka was Shui Songdoa. She did the liver rather any Gombara Sayuna, any Kaya Khan your Marisi or that. But they said that any liver rather Gombara say, they touching the metaverse that Tonda to the Terra. 힌딜레베 심 당바점 이제 세제 무조건 진단지 침작고바 네 데다 이니 벨레바라 곰바라베이나 에네 킬까지 데려 야고 티 초고 말지 무조건 유제 가르스나 파바토미 데송야 데라 조바셰와다 양다고 조바셰와라니 뎀디주비 일라셰와베도 데시고다 that the Sadiq share the same things the Gusea share. But tell a job was some time was rather that send the things good only. Young Town Joe share learning, dimmed you were easy either share you those. She the dimmed you was a liberal Gombara is going to dimmed you were what is your dimmed you were easy either show. She sent me a top. Gui sim dongbo ni ji ge su zhe song ji se jo ba de nyo jo ba ni ro ti she de ya dem de ju ba se yi ji she go ro o ti dem ju yi ji go ro song sha as she le ba ra ne dem go ya yo ma ro ko sim na ye sha she ni ro go ro dongbo le jang qiwan se le bi ba de ni me tam du song she dang se de qiwan se la 미버티 탐도 송세다 미버 탐도 송세야 돼 세야 되다 에도 세장 말세야 돼 직받다 가지 고르 벌발 레정 네 되니 쉬워쉬워 쉐네세 진네 제 미버티 생기 현두 서 동조 들어 쳐오스 现在穷啊没有些，还是路上的穷啊了过了哇，现在的没有钱的时候嘞。现在今年讲美国的你生意现在少东就知道小少东现在不个有，谁不特别给人这个嘛的感觉，谁些俺的过的时候，先送说，甚至少同些叫同些送别有少，谁家现在有可能也老了，谁不下面给人的不是的嘛的时候，那感觉，谁家是老可能吃不，你不满意吧？我真正是你谁家是吧？Marsiore. Mesegi Lun Zina Hindi say Tamba the show in us, Zino see the say Tamba, show in the set. Tembet the Hindu Geshe de Mashi Par Jangbe Taso, Gumshe the Moon the Shiva Zandi, Jingis Cherus Doatan. Chun Suzutobi, Sheriff. Sheriff Dudun Song So Yi said, John Shindu, Mongbo Duba La. Thing is, there were you about Loma Shiva, no, that did to say that Leva Rava Gomarashi Deshana. In the thing is, the Jomio Geshe the race. Geshe the Geshe the rumors and the thing is the true. Anything is the bay top of you know the Shady, the Tindega Sound on Goris. That's it.
So, so that's why, like when you want to practice, some of the non-Buddhist practitioner was encouraged that just let it be. You don't have to be too much analyzing anything, but let it loose, and that's the best way to practice. That's why, like, if you let your mind loose and just be relaxed, and if you practice, that's the best, and that's the best meditation as well. So this is what they try to encourage in order to achieve serenity. And so this is like what in the 8 mindful, like different meditation to a 9 mindful way of meditating on serenity, that clearly shows that like in order to practice, your mindfulness is very important, because without having a proper mindfulness, then eventually that all these faults will arise. And then because of this, like when you don't have those kind of tools and condition of different types to help you to mindful about, to control your mind, then eventually when that will lead you to find lots of faults. And with these faults, like it will let it loose and let it loose your mind, then eventually this will overpower with the laziness and mental cloudedness. And even when you eventually that when we have that laziness, then we cannot have a clear mind. And when we don't have clear mind, then eventually that we cannot see the object clearly and then achieve the serenity. So that's why in order to practice, you cannot like just let it loose also. You cannot be too tight in object of meditation, but it needs, we call the clear mind, a clear mind which is like which is like a perfect balance to pierce through those objects without any hiding tight. Also let it loose, but with the pure, clear, active mind you need, which is like normally they call clear mind, which means a very active mind. That active mind is the most important, because with the help of active mind, then it will lead us to be very mindful about practicing and meditating into the object of meditation. So that's why in this the mindfulness is one of the most important, because of this, like this reason that and the other non-Buddhists try to encourage about let it loose your mind is best, and that is the meditation is the best meditation. So this will be the highest the obstacle in order to help you achieve this serenity, because the moment that when we let our mind loose and think that this is the best meditation, then that will be the highest obstacles to block you from achieving or realizing serenity. That's why you have to make sure that your mind should be clear, your mind should be active, and that mindfulness is important aspect of practicing serenity.
어디에 제가 땡인지 두루데 다 예주로데 사대다 에네 너데 진세 우다 들어요 어디 제가 저번도 라루 현다 들어라 베제 인데 제르무시 디기타 라루 세모나 예셔들마도 제 라루 현다 베제 그래서 냐면 답을하지게 에네 타진다 자바두게 에네 군산함에 실무도 강가래 에네 실아 거르파 강산자 명산지 신내도 학동스마 당우마도 구구구는 지야면도 내내 지야요마 심세 지야요마 그래서 진짜 매잔다 코노스데 미툭치바 요마데 다 제주도서 마말레온도서네 디지워다 총고모 마랑시는 딜야 조단 소고로와 그래서 제가 디소레스 제가 디토스 고메이나다 아니 곰 잡아래 맞잡아 가야 다 가져와 가지 곰나 엔 징에 셔르셰 시바 미세와 드레서는 더 곰하잖아 그거라 그래서 제가 소도에 셔랍 그 남주지 초도 그래서 다 가지 너도 내가 가르치나 가래 소도에 셔랍 남주지 고라 남주지 되게 비게 제니 렉바리 따고 뭐도 제일 에네 페션을 예와다 비셰발 지월리셰 소소 로링 예면 디펜토가 야마라 셔도 이네 어디 제바자는 뭐 소도에 제발까네 하샤나 이샤나 이네 그 건조 kup에서 자로 다 가지 제도 저그랬어 SD 또 땡인지 곰시디 땡인지 가시면 땡인지 고네 두야스 두거스는 전바데 희신이 그 두거로 전시지 어제도 니셔부레스 대단한 시바 다 전바스 미발라 딱바 티체 미발리반 지는 민지게 샤자시베세 또바제도 롱 냠나스 데레다 다데 파르파데니 카르사 희신 샤라시세야 저러와 세미발 샤 템베 샤 진도러와 타고 미발 샤 디다 인 미발 샤 미발 랑자 데데 제바도시 샤라시나 인 코 미발 잉도 말베시 워와 다디 세바시 미발 리반제는 민지지 샤라웨 또바시 제로면야는 데니 샤고와 인디스 시다다 디심 인 미발 니고 말 샤라시죠 말세네 인 콜레샤네 니고 말스 인 코테 딱다 누구도 이제 뭐지 따고 그래서 거다 딱다 누구도 거라 다가샤 딱다 누구면도나 인 주야 라가가 이런 소샤 미발 시원레드는 인 시원레는데 세베야 시원상 미발 란자샤 괴발레는 그 미발 주샤 어디 되는 거 되기도 되샤 어디 샤브레스 그래서 윤리시 그래서 저 내가 땡인지 땅내세 때때만 또 매예세 지다 단다 샤라시도 달라 펜달 그거 가르면 되게 사고르면 되게 돈이면 갈비기나 이 샤라시도 달라 이 티미가데 바땅네 이 샤라시도 티바레스 미가데 마땅해 가니 로직 미가데 샤여와 샤라싱이 로 서바치 칼리글 제거해서 어디 땅는 지금 말레스 매지 땡에서 네셰베 가니 사베 미발라 응아르샤바다 네 미네땅 미네나 친구 거두 송세 따듬셰바데 땡에서 샤니 하저 땡인지 샤니 하저 통 되죠 많이 하저 통 하저 통 되죠 많이 하저 롱아야 많이 파르파디 시와이노 데다 근데 딱바 가도 지금서는 양스 딱바 시죠 말해서 다 담고서 미den시가 미데들 매네 아니 바로 소도 냐뉴도 다 친구다 되게 연구면서 되게 바로 지금 양양 딱바 시든 sem이가 내고 말아 그래서 바로 이 두도 레모가 딱 그래서 왔다 됐지 어디 저랬어 매지 땡이들 땡에서 네 해병안에 자외미바 나셔바다 네 미니 당 미네는 친구 강도선이도 손 따와 잡셔바 때 세리다 근데 다 지대 가데도 따스 접시 다가 네도 다가 지가 먹어 다가샤 친구도 버티 가려도 시원시원 시원도 답시 외바셔는 외반도 답시고 따지시고 그래 어디래 따스 시바데 땡인지라 샤니 하자 통 되게 말 하자 르와야 많이 봐 따시와 이노 되제 따랑함에 쇼당 나름 랑함에 쇼당 나르마세 잔네세 디시스 다 도모 미바 주도자네 에네 스비우도시 미바 소네 엔 로코랑 비게 미바 대당저와 셰다디디다디 로디 쇼드 마조세네 엔 따고레시와 미바 파샤바다 따고 마라 코라 카도 디그라 다데도 샤셰다 로디 쇼쇼는 두그라와 어디 쇼쇼는 두에 삼는 따고레시와 다 거지 가자 니 가자 예드미 따지와디 땡인지 샤디와 마이노 롱암에 쇼당 나르마세 잔시 쇼데다 렘바시세디 테게데 하전 조보마지 링보마지 렘바 카데시오스나 인 로직 비게 삼로디 비타서 그런 삼로 땅로 슉슉 셔그라 인데네 또 다가랑 셔나 인데 쇼마 충나마데 야셔르 두시 두고마레 셋 충루는 야장 빠르거라 어디서 왔다 거니 샤라시바이노 롱암에 쇼다 나르마세 잔네 시바인스 어디지 나르시아디 가르선 테제 세바당기 시바 워 중보 첨보 냐벤여들이 많이 간지 가다베 친구 그 위무도 소리 그래 깡수부고 왔다 가지 어디서 그래 시바이 바나 로예디 나르지 어디 나르지 만데는데 유릉도 시원도 그거 유도 또 그거 유도 어디래다 이제 바로 뭐 디레지 감쇼 조르도 양쇼야 빠 배는 매듭다나 다 디바디 예스 나 체중 동아야라 매체도 청주시 근데 양 총저도 셔보시 그 빠려요 그는 유직 버디 가지 내도 어딘데 시 텔레 케바시 그래서 네 유리도 좋아 시원도 어디래시나 시원 그거도 그거 예도 어디랬다 심미발샤 샤니 이니 시신 샤라데 딱 해보세 저거 많이 봐 양배 유르모 샤잖아 심 그게 미발 땡에지는 영는 봐 유르모 시라서는 다도 하모 되어 어디 되는 용지 말이야 어디 마용 거니 인다 피질로이 간데도 저도 요즘 디가래 인 샤라셔 그래 에도 티신데 파르파디 미방아마 텐점 나마 텐점 셰네 중알아야 템버 톱셔다 윤대의 집에 세줄 그베 템베 중주 인데스 어디래 그래서 티신데 파르파디 네 미방아마 텐점 셰네시 그 세르도 다 사고도 집에 사고마디 맥되어라 진짜 세보시라면 양주 세르도 땅 맥지체 어디래지는 거 이거 약고 이거 해서라 중주인의 년살에 대라 섬제지고니 컨셰나 매바 양的就是全巴的 차투발라 미바다 유는 데바다 카나마도 매바다 가와단데 비심기시 베데바 카나마도 바다 가와단데 비심기 유칸이 바데 땡땡인 지제야차 개외심제지고 이기쇼 대라 지시 양다 양도就是시제는 매바 추강다 강다 송이 년바다 라마탈리 당아 당시就是대바 저 강이바 디엉도 셰니 냠바샤베세 사베 처먹은데 Shadi, Mibatilla, you don't dembe, say, Tebe, you was shaging, Nyoto was showers, she did that thing is the gomnate, any lame shade to 9 degrees. In so me young she need to a better than a degree. Can you better than the dinner, lame shade to and out, did not she any don't talk showers. But the Nyansa this on door. You don't have Jesus to was shaking, Nyoto was shadows, shadow, Udenam Shelaja, Uden de Shedaja, Tremanim Miba Majabo, Sheshawan, Sim never sherry, Danga Yi Juji sherry, Tazugo, Shesumbe, Trematem and Mibale, Yin Jingin Gobe, say Chidi Imbe, Tim Gobe, Miba Majabani,
this not this judge, not this judge.
and Montas here. You know what things like you go to this. That's your shit.
That's where I am now. Um, so that's why that non-Buddhists normally encourage that if your mind to let your mind loose, and then that will be the best way to practice, and that is the best way to meditate. So with these, like because of that, like we cannot focus into the object of meditation and cannot pierce through to achieve serenity. So that's why, like if it is like that, like if the mind is not clear, if the mind is not active, it is just loose and with mental cloudiness and mental wandering, then it's better not to practice because it won't lead to any kind of realization. So that's why like it's better not to practice. So um, uh, so that's why in order to practice the true serenity, uh, like it's like one must need a skillful like kind of a result, like a skillful, like for example, like like when you're practicing something that it needs some kind of like achievement or something that the positive causes and condition that truly activate your practice. Because if there's no proper tools and knowledge or causes and condition, then no matter how much we try to apply in the name of serenity or concentration, then there's no result at all. So that's why we need a very the proper causes and condition that truly give the proper result. So that's why like it's like sometimes it's like in order to have even knife also, if you have a sharpness is not enough, because if the metal is not strong enough, it will bend, or if it's too sharp, it will break. So it needs a proper perfect the result there to so that it won't bend also, it won't break also, perfectly can cut the wood or things. So it needs this kind of perfect tools to cut through this the lethargy or laziness, and so that's why like it needs the perfect those tools. Otherwise, it's better not to practice. And so and with these if to practice properly, then you have to constantly watch on the mindfulness, constantly watching with mindfulness. Because if you constantly don't watch with proper mindfulness, then even you may be practicing long period of time also, it won't lead to any place, any result. So that's why in order to practice properly or rightfully, then you have to have watch over you constantly with the mindfulness. And this mindfulness is what the Geshe is saying, that when you are meditating and focusing in the object of meditation, that same consciousness you should not apply to watch you. You need the secondary consciousness to watch over. It's like a spy. Like there is boss, and there is somebody who sent spy to watch over you, but the same person cannot spy on itself. So the same consciousness is meditating and concentrating into the object of meditation. And at the beginning, of course, that mind is very sharp, clear, and clear, so you can focus. But after some time, that when this mind become more blur and blur, so then there's a secondary consciousness called mindfulness to watch over that and try to sparkle that to so that's why like you have to constantly watch with the secondary mind, which is called the mindfulness. And then and so in order to watch your the consciousness, or also you don't have to watch all the time. You don't have to watch like every minute, or you don't or also you should not let it be like, okay, I'll watch my mind with after many days or time. No, it has to, like, you have to watch like not often, but every once in a while, that when your mind seems like blur, you cannot focus properly, then the mindfulness has to play the role in order to watch over the consciousness. So that's why like so it needs the if you, that's why like with these, if you do in a doing properly or rightly and continuously practice like that, then that's how that you, it will help you to practice in a right way. That's why it's like it's a right weapon to pierce through this the lethargy and laziness, and then eventually to achieve realization. So and then that's why like sometimes even it says that especially try to watch over your own consciousness when your mind become more lazy, like your at the beginning your mind is more clearer, and then after some time when it become more blurred, then you watch over and then activate your own consciousness. And then so that's why it says that at the beginning it will be more clearer, so you don't have to watch over that. And so in order to watch, that's why like your mind should be not like dull or lazy or cloudiness or wandering. It has to be more clear, active, sharp mind to focus. So sometimes this is often given as like our mind should be like how the mindfulness should watch over is like a fire, like when you have a fire. If it's a wooden fire, that when the fire goes down, then you add more wood to making more bigger. Even though even a gas right now, you can turn how high you want, how low you want. So that's why in order to watch over that mindfulness or the serenity, that it needs a perfect balance to control with the help of mindfulness. So that's why like, it's like the fire that you add how much you want to add fuel or not, so you can control. And then uh, so so this only that you have to do when the consciousness level is very low, that you cannot focus. That time you have to watch over. And then yeah, like uh, for those like who are concentrating or visualizing the image, like gods or goddesses or buddhas or bodhisattvas, then that also like when your mind cannot see clear image, or whether your object of meditation, like the Buddhas or gods and Bodhisattvas, if the object is not so clear, then with the help of mindfulness, you are trying to see more clearer into the object of meditation, like Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. That's how the mindfulness has to engage into, to check on them. And now, so and in order to practice for this reason, then there are ethical things that you have to follow. Some that is like ethical, that is naturally, that is not allowed to engage, or something that is like it's because of the monastic rules and regulation that you are not allowed to engage. So the ethical vow has to be skillfully hold into to make your foundation more firm, and more firm and practice properly. So in this, to understand more detail about how to practice, how to apply mindfulness, how to practice in order to have a perfect balance to that, you can receive a guidance through your master, spiritual master. If you don't have, then you go through the proper texts that will explain everything details about the serenity with what are the causes and condition you need, how many types of the paths you need in our practice. Even though there are many other texts that will be explained, that is not fully explained everything detail about this serenity and insight. So you have to get the right text, like J. Rinpoche's, the Lamarim text, or those things that explain everything in detail to give you the right tools to practice serenity. That's the
the within the year share the country is Temba Miwa Major. That Miwa G said the Gondo Jidon G said the Samotan here and G said, so that the Miwa G said Timber, Kaji Simcona Mipal shorts on Miwa G, the country, the Madonna. Oh, said the Temba said the enemy Jingin Goya is Major Ila Shiva, Ila Shiva, the race. Kaji Tama the Tingi eating. Yang mi kwa ye shi go ba shi yi le shi ba wo pen na ze shi le tong ge ye yi do ba na yang yi le che ba shi na ye ga wa zha wo shi ma zu de ji dan ji de ji de ye ba sa sa xia se ji ro shi de de tong ni xie bo ji na yang yi le ja ge na ni ko ye ka ga ye ra ba de ji wa de shi de chen be mi kwa de yang che ba shi de ni ko ze mi kwa le me yo ko de to ya chou go ro ba de yin shi wa zha de na Mikpa par the chamber, Shivani, Chabatom de Jawa, Lagola, Seodita, she the part big well pass him shook shirt down, she shook shirt down in Chabatom de Jagres. Tombo mi was Tabajik Shadin, the consumed the Tara Digaba, shook soon do, shook soon do, and a top shirt on, or two shilling in Chevrolet. Simi well here the mirror, Sere Sonis, Shara Shivani, Shingo Dobi. 시신 튼데 타 임베 튼도 들어야 또바 인냐는 냐네 간의 쳔바의 시신 동대 조신 거 쇼쇼스 어디다 들어야 가지 연건 로도디 하상 룩소지어와 세제바도 또바시 됐어다 들어데 되게 비과 파르파디 쳔바시어 니 쳔바 똑지베 똑대지베 Tobde Jaw Gulas, did it. Simibal hidden Yingmi Sere Suni Charashivani, Shingu Dobe, Shishin Tunde to do a time base. But I tell her the change the thing the Jobala, at the Duyak Brigade charging of the Yakuita, Shiva did it. And the Temba, he Tembe and the Miguel near, he said Miguel Ying do Sharashi. Oh, that you do not end the Geshe Karza. We were young just to shower what it is. That did shower in the Dana in the Shishin, the Tebes, young the me was somewhat Shishin get in his me well dig somewhat down did and today some moment down there the talk what is. So the talk by the talk the 10 homers love in it is already. Should go here shows that dress then in the Tobacco anything in the Jaya Marasiva, because some of them anything is Jaya Marva, or this way. Or this said, that the Jana Hajang is at the Redua. We were far about the Trebashiva, the Trabato de Gola. Simigual here the me or Ceres and the Kare, did it, Ceres and the Paru Mashab in Sigur, some said the Jungsha the Mibajet were Yurishina Latado, Shishamalish Dation, what said a demo. So go Hanen do the Namsan future of the Hakwashi, that what you say what this is. I said, then the Miguel part Trebachev, Trebatom de Jagola. Or the Sierra Conzetta, thinking the Rovala, Trebatom de Jikshe, and the Hishin Sharasing, Hishin Jikshe, that Hishin the Chara Kadeshi, Tagilas or Parpal. Remember, same top được thằng mình vào xem cái nút top được show mà xong sẽ chung vào rồi này hiện nhá thế bên top giờ thì chiều rồi khi giờ đến chiều rồi có chiều ta thì sắp được ta thì thiên khí như cái bên chế ba chiều chế ra chiều xong rồi anh thì cái top ba xong rồi anh thì top ba xong thì gọi là mà top ba cái cao là vì na anh kare ini yonde koma bige tonyi mo do se do da ne tarba tabji wa to tabzan yo marwa tabu cheba shi do to be do ber mai ji da mo ngo do to marwa che to bo gang ka ya yo mares wa ji shin ta di kare ne ga shi shu de sho gore ga ji shin du ka shi ba sho wo sa ha ko sa da
Uh, so, so that's why, like, in order to practice that need guidance through your spiritual master or relying on the proper text that you can understand and practice properly. Because otherwise, like, we are just going through like a kind of a wrong text. Like, I think that we missed some translation from previous one. Like, just let our mind just loose, and then that if you consider as this is the best meditation, then it's kind of like you're following the Hyunsang, the thought of practicing. So like it's just practicing in a Hyunsang, one of the Chinese translator, how he practiced. So that's why we should not follow that style. And so now, in order to like the practice that we often has to remind ourselves to focus and remember that with our mindfulness or watching our own mind with different consciousness, because these two are the most important in practicing serenity. Because if you don't watch your mind often with the help of this mindfulness, then eventually that the obstacle will arise, and then we like it will be difficult, more difficult to practice. So, so that's why, like in order to practice, we call the it's in English, in Denpa means actually mindfulness. Shejin means like you you know that, and knowing that, and constantly remembering that. Like the Denpa means is reminding you, and Shejin means you know that and constantly remembering that. So these two are very important aspect in order to practice. So that's why, like in even though sometimes they call that this, sometimes this is called the, I don't know, in English it's called the discursive, like the object that you cannot see, object that's just like imaginary object or something. So these are not the true object of meditation, because there's nothing to see, and like because this imagination and then this mindfulness is not the true object of meditation, because you cannot see that. So sometimes they call this is not the true object of meditation. But in order to practice at the beginning with the help of proper understanding, with the proper meaning, so if you constantly practice on the mindfulness, and then the object of meditation that you constantly highlight, these are very important at the beginning to help you to practice or to achieve serenity. So that's why, in order to remember every once in a while, whenever you feel like your mind is low, your concentration is weaker, then you have to remind with the help of mindfulness to focus into. Otherwise, if you don't focus like that, then we are exactly following the Hashang's way of practicing.
that is joy.
So we want to stop here. So if you have any question, please.
The problem I have is less of the being too loose. It's more being too tight, and trying to I mean, I have a lot of motivation and diligence and like enthusiasm, but then I have a lot of thoughts come in. So, but I also cannot see the object clearly. And so I was wondering if Yanla has any advice.
Morangi di tanda shine gomedla the same nyobdo chela de shira kange mindosa the same tamara shara de la kange shuye sare odila da khar che gona dila ta tapshide
Sim travel share the Gova share down that my Gova singing in one share there. The same you the chicken to say, she said you
nyobdo
she
de
done job with the chicken do not. It is your time. Another Nangvesha Dashina. Any big Karsa. Simjinyawa da Trolas of Yinsu Dungenda. Or did some of them was a wash. Yinsu Dungenda did some of them in the consumer China the you do what I can't. Tayan Simbe Karsa. Pang Mava season. Nyobta season, any young good job. Get Teva going on double. And keep young. Make by Yala, Shansu going on the water to the showers. Sim Pang Mava Kars Toba season, that Medek would take it on that take over that. When is na Lendeg Damsha to go over that. Can't you leg Miguel in any year so doing the Yava Sarang, the Yamaway. What did that when easy castle? In some consumer Chayama, which I over it, Chaya lot of what it is.
so what Geshe is saying about when one's mind is too much active and mind wanders too much because of too much thought, then it's normally it's called the mental wandering, and to help us to stop or control that mental wandering is best way is, especially in Buddhist way of explaining about how to control our mental wandering, is to always think about the unfortunate rebirth or hell being, that how the hell beings are suffering, how unfortunate rebirth has no opportunity to practice. So more we see and think about those things, it helps us to control our mind, not to wander too much. And even based on that, like it's best together with is to always understand more about the karma, the law of cause and effect. Because the more you understand about the law of cause and effect, then eventually it will gain a faith towards that, oh, if I do this properly, then I will have this kind of proper rebirth or higher rebirth. So with these, when you gain faith with the help of the law of cause and effect, then together with all this unfortunate and rebirth or hell, those things, then it will help us to not to wander our mind too much. And the other side, like if our mind become more loose and more laziness and mental cloudiness, then on that reason, that to help us to inspire, so we have to see the qualities of like Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and higher being and realization. So inspiring that how they have worked hard and then achieved those realization. So the more we understand about those things, then it will help us to be more active and to come out from those mental loose or cloudiness.
This Chita Puel, the Lamrico and Rosasi, late Judas, daughter, Yesu, the Kanji, Lama, the Kanji, Sumwata. This is my Shilaka, Shira Yevosumare. The Diva young Kumshi of the Karinata, in Lendeco, anything is not doing it to the Shidazara, in a seven Dungan Savalem was the Charney. She no has a child of the way, go Pendo River, so child of the She had that Tilia. Samuton Dinanda, you don't consider the dead shower. The Gunesha go some Medashaka, Genso Dunga yours, Dunga, the way in the Shaka yours, and the Genso Domo Sula, so Yakushini, Yavacha, Tondala, and Lady Shiva. Mother, the other Shino has Lady Shiva, whatever. She had the teacher, Lady, you have one translation, is not doing the 다 녀이자 또 샤쇼 먼저 베기 통화선 달리 tundu tuzla ngandu nyamnyung to ruwa tundu dung khase da tide samo tona in so chi ne te meje dingzu khayo marwa me da ne da ti tonda da tundu kene yabu mundu so del da gidi bana shi gudu san shibe ne shima de dol jirawa in che del hegwa ka ko tigre ser ma da chi ba ngeso saru mara su la ba ya da rawa ya do the man does sanzum de there she 지시다 단대 가와 두게 양에도 수락고 여서 애들 연속 등에 해나 해다 해과야 말에 그래봐 저도 소대 도면 마잖아 해다 해과 별롱바 해다지 마자는 소티와 도면 해과 해라요 말아 뒤소리 셔버라
So that's why in Tibet normally like when all the master and all these great beings when they teach mostly Tibetan will try to explain more about the law of cause and effect, the more on karma, and instead of and then they don't put much effort on like serenity or insight or those explanation. They more focus on the cause and effect, and but in the Western country they are more interested other way around. They want more on about the inside serenity and how to realization, how to achieve realization, like serenity in the inside and other realization. And sometimes like when we explain about the cause and effect, suffering, unfortunate rebirth, like an animal realm or hungry ghosts or hell realm, when we explain, and then about cause and effect, then sometimes maybe it's because of the culture, they freak out, they're scared, worried, like, what if I have born? And so sometimes they are not ready to listen those kind of things. So that's why we have to explain more on the higher, deeper level, maybe. So that's why what Geshe is suggesting is, all this when we explain about the cause and effect, that if you do such negative action, because of the negative action will lead us to be an unfortunate rebirth like animal or hungry ghost or hell realm. And then with these hell realm, that an unfortunate rebirth, that will have this kind of suffering, then like this is all like sometimes like as if that we feel like, oh, I'm going to suffer, and they scared, that they worry and scared. Actually, by what Geshe is trying to explain is, you don't have to scare right now, because we are still, as a human rebirth, we have the opportunity to practice and learn, and to be born into that unfortunate rebirth is all in our own hand. To achieve higher realization or not also is all in our own hand. So that's why this is like reminding us to not to engage into those kind of negative action, so that one will fall into unfortunate rebirth. So you don't have to worry about those and scared about that. But it's better to understand and not to engage, so that we won't fall into it. So that's why Geshe is trying to remind those things.
karsa de da 동이 저거서 인지 세워도 상주 섬서 다 동이 도 세워서 뒤에 간가 단데 기부된 숨을 숨어 어디게 뒤에 뭐 무슨 깨요 말아 제가 깨면 알이 대공도 좀 뒷말은 요 말다 간데 배는 데려 지도 로중으로 세나 이게 이겼다는 말랍세 애는 테리다 가서가 개와시기 생각대 장고에서는 그것도 말아 어디는 이셔다 가지 뒤 맞아도 맞으나 인지시보다 성주스도 또유도로도 용사 용화라.
So that's why sometimes like people are more interested in learning about emptiness or bodhicittas and then those higher realization. And actually, these topics, these subjects about emptiness, bodhicittas, and those higher realization are the practitioner for the medium scope and the higher scope. So, and in order to engage into those medium and higher scope, or to understand, without having a proper foundation about like renunciations, a proper refuge and renunciation and those things, there's no way to build that and achieve that. So that's why like need those proper foundation to understand and practice. Yes, please. Akiko. Aki. Or
When we are meditating on something that's not visual, like say one's own breath or nature of mind as an object of shamatha meditation, how does it look? How can I know when it's clear or dull?
yes, okay. The moraina tanda de shine gomme on de dene pena ta yu de mixigi chik ta thoya me ta kudo me kaus me se daga chi da chik danda da chi gomgiro da de mik thoya mora da migi de shine gi migi yo mora ane dendel migi gom de ngi khande ha gore se de migi la tene nga to shine thobe da ane de khande ha gore se gan se thoya me do asa de migi de
네 카미 다시니 고모니 카야 말아. 신이 고자 네 무유데 그게 전부를 꾸대될 신한디고 방법 몇 있다 야고다 시자데 예 간가 로는 예와셰 아니 곰 내가 나 야티 라 누타는 고야요 말아. 일 제대 디셈을 샤는 들 공고로 또 곰나 되게 따때면 아니 디공가 몇 동고 말에 예준서 곰나 되게 정주심 곰나 되게 말에 정주심 곰네네 그 맛이 되려서 버티서 신이 강에 셔버야도 까지 셔버야 되게 그 곰니 셔서 간좀들 진짜 더더 조주 가들 되어 신이 줘야 돼 샤주심 그게 다시 냠주고 샤주심 곰이야 될 땡인데 두고도 와 신이 두고 진짜 몇 통마 가래 소소 그게 샤주심 곰고나 다 샤주심 곰 뺀 심지다지 에네 그게 말시 받는데 남들 유력 명아들은 지야 삼네 또 내 삼을 곰되나 이 컨텐츠 삼을 먹어서 현다한테 말레가도 현다서 거서는 드디어 미바 영아시고 다 미기 동거로 그 전주선 공사 랑가데 대면도 그 인식으로 다 전주선 공약까지 해야 되는데 배 제대로 써야 돼 간가 그래서 너무 차이 나시 누구도 미바 내시고로 onda tamada 전주선 그 마셔도 지금 간절히 다리 걸리가 가르치고 산이 가르치고 가와도 있는 세상을 쉬되는 인미가 인식이라 뭐 인식 되게 당보 해서 되게 미 통하고 말수 삼문다 미바스고 뭐 비수지 고 말서 신이 주더니 저 가르르면 신이 들어와요 수지를 거나 제가 수미를 거나 되게 체험을
So, like, even though there's no visual object to meditate on serenity or meditation, like as a beginner, like of course we have to read books or listen teachings, and then so after reading and listening the books, the whole books or all that you understand. So after that understanding that meaning, then you sit down and focus. Either it can be object of meditation or it won't be any object of meditation. So like, for example, if you're meditating on renunciations, then there's no object of meditation. Then you have to analyze whatever you understand through your book, that why that you have to renounce it, and why that it is like if I'm like the purpose of. So with these, like there's the way to go deeper into meditation. Like even if you are meditating on bodhicitta, then there's no object of meditation, that you have to understand through each and every meaning that what really bodhicitta means. Then focus on that meaning, that you go deeper and deeper into meditation. So that's why, like in Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life, they always explain about focusing on the how to meditate on bodhicitta is firstly, like even though there's no object of meditation, first you have to think that how all the mother sentient beings, the sentient beings are mother, and then focusing on that mother sentient beings, then how the mother sentient beings are kind to me, And then after knowing that, oh, every mother sentient beings are kind to me, then how do I repay the kindness? So when we check and analyze each and every step about those things, even though there's no object of meditation, no visual object, but there is a meaning that you are going through step by step. So this is the way that that eventually your mind, you will eventually know that you are progressing in through that visualizations, meditation. So, but instead of that, while you are meditating on mother sentient beings and then kindness, at the same time, like we're meditating that, oh, tomorrow where I want to go and what is my plan and I have to do this. So while together with this meditation that our mind is thinking other stuff together with blending together, then it's not going to the right way. So that's why we will eventually know that our mind is really is going towards the right way or not in order to have achieve serenity. So that's why to meditate, to practice on serenity, you don't need a visual object also. If you want to have a visual object, you can have that because you can see the image of Buddha as clear as you can, understand the meaning of the qualities of body, speech, and mind of Buddha, and you can focus into that object also, visual object, and you can meditate. So that's like either way you can meditate. I hope so. That's your right answer, but yes, Alan.
Thank you very much, Geshe, for your teachings. So when you meditate, and I want to meditating on serenity is single-pointed concentration, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when you meditate, for example, on the object of meditation, let's say the Buddha's image, at first I'm imagining that you are tightening onto the image. You want to grasp the image, so there is a tightening of the mind. And almost, as you tighten and you concentrate onto the image of the body, you also have the grasping, and then you have a release. Almost always comes together, and I think it's kind of normal, that grasping, releasing of the mind. And as you release, the mind feels, more clear, more maybe luminous, I don't know. But then you lose the image. What are you supposed to do in that moment? Do you need to go back to the image, to the visualization of that image, or do you rest into that, I don't know how to express it, but into that, maybe clarity or that kind of release?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's my question.
Let's see. Quran ki tanda nganzo de shine gomya kone shigo rosa ani shine gomya la ni sem tsechik tu ani yula ne ani shayadi ani chi sungi do sidu sem tsechik tu yula shane ani shine gomya chi ora la yu na yu me na yu ji ani gomya di ani da pena temba do chi gomba do chi na ani da gomde zamzam ta pe shiguchi june ta temba de la de migu de la shibuchi damne dimne ane chi gomgo dos an zamzam tinje leche ne lhyang je ne gomgo do ane den gomde parola ane kho ta garu le ne mi seru chaya da yana ko ye cheru chaya da dene do chi yongo re sa pena ane dene zamzam ta ko chik lhyang ta je das migula the same the massage and chik seru massage yorala odinde na kharje gore sa de ko ya pose deshi ja chu tu mi du sa
아니 지금 다들 지내지다 때 가고요. 저 당고 근데 세나자 야고 지금 말이야. 그 하고를 고민이나 하고를 매 야고 다시 애는데 일이신 공부 그 당고 세버샤야 말아. 세버샤면다 애는 당고에 sem샤바다가 애는 세버샤면 애는 저래야 세버샤야 돈달에 샤다 샤다 해도 간가 누구지 제발로 세디게나 아니 거슴 데이터야 말와. 제가 당보 해도 거래 롭지다. 사회에서 버리지. 다 그게 가르자. 롭지 세 베샤다 샤 가가리 세워 맞았나 다지 롭지를 일 샤서나 와 텔리스템 샤고 그래시. 되네 역 때지 미과 때로 도서나 이니 미과 텔라 샤네 이니 샤다 샤 세나 당시 tuksi dogo re tamo kon intide sena tonga yo mares sena tana ene di mara me semi kwa mara.
So, like in serenity, of course, to practice is not that easy. It needs a lot of enthusiasm and lots of hardship on that. So, at the beginning, yes, it won't be clear at all because you are trying to visualize the image, for example, image of Buddha. It's hard to see everything in detail, a clear image. So you are just blurrily trying to, or roughly like visualizing the object of meditation like a Buddha. And so at the beginning, it won't be clear enough to visualize clearly. Then slowly to deepen and to that meditation, then you have to try to see the limbs like hands or feet or crown or head or dress. So you have to read those quality of the image of Buddha. So then after that, like you begin to understand that, oh, these are the parts that you need to visualize in order to visualize Buddha. So then you try to stay all together into the whole image. So then after that, we stay longer and longer. Then it becomes more clearer and clearer because the quality will shine through that image because you know now clearly. But at the beginning, it won't be clear enough. So yes, it needs a time to prolong your meditation and like that. Then slowly it will become more clearer.
So you definitely need to stay with the image.
Yes.
You don't. Okay.
The migi dagarang gi tembaro chi dagarang la migba dattene da deogorasa denita. Chik pen migba shobodo china dene shashe mare migba dagarang dimne deogorasa.
제가 미국에 다 당보가 미국 가르친데 동바 그 시과야 뭐 쉬가를 미는 디어 거기다 선대서 지금 힘이 나도 너는 지과나 지체야 말이 자 건데 또발 그게 미샤이네 이 상지 군조 상지 제정 소리 좀더 소사 연구를 쓰고라 어디게 어디서 이제 미국 다가 제조 말이 때 최종돼야 제조 말다 당고 뺀 충중 시가자 그냥 참듯이 먹고 참듯이 충중 어디래시든 지금 말했어 최종그 당고 차지 주고요 다가라 그걸 샤워했어.
So yes, you have to stay into the object of meditation, and like so in that it's not necessary. It has to be just just image of Buddha. You can meditate on like a piece of wood or stone, and any object will be fine. But when you want to focus, when you are focusing into the object of meditation, it has to be the same size. It has to be. If it is, you have the very first day that you have meditated until you achieve, the size should not increase or decrease the size. It has to be the same size until you achieve.
Thank you. Thank you, Geshe.
Yes.
For me, so I'm
Okay.
Before even thinking about sitting down of meditation, before you even think about, I'm going to meditate, what preliminaries or what work do you do to start setting up the causes and conditions for you to be able to progress? Before the beginning, what do you do?
Okay. and Quran tanda ta ko le tangbo wa resa da ko dire shire ha ko mesa and jesan digi ta pena gom ja da dine je gi ngaral du dine ko thadi khar che ko resa da yana nga sa da chik dem ba de da chik yoje de ba tingon go ro la de thadi khar che ko resa pena the gom ja ngaral du khar che ko resa di nghe là đã đi nghe là ngondo đâu chỉ ta đã khát chịu có thắt lệ thằng bố bảo đấy sao chỉ học của mấy sĩ đó
제가 다들 단다 공원에서 다 제가 소사지 하고 시지고 미 제가 공자도 공원에서는 돼야 그래서 미국 가르치는 리그로 어때 때는 공야 샘들 네터 시야지로 와 다들 샘 샤당들 야이니 비게 샘 요도시는 리그 말에 점산은 리그 말에서 당기다 시에서 이게 그것이 디자지리야 야제도 저거 간대 되게 딱이 공유래서 때부터 단다가 노고에서 베치 가서 틱틱 양양도 요뭐 소소 냠용간이 따야라 그대래.
So what Geshe is saying that every beginner or who we practice or meditate, any object that you want to apply into your meditation, so you can apply any object, and that together with there's no such thing as special thing, but as we explained before, that your mind should not be let it loose or should not be too tight. Stay into that right moment or to practice. These are the important part, like whether you're beginners or advanced practitioner. These are the most important part that you have to focus and remember.
Just being aware of the condition of your mind.
Yes, being aware, yes.
네, 계실라 당에게 티워디 드링 롭센다 미세게 저게 책문도 이나다 계실라네 치게라 난추 모트나네 mambushura 난추 모트나베 규림나라 아니 다 치게월라 난추 모트나 나와디다 아니 간주 페베치소나라 난추 마수마 디니기 발라 아니 기실라레 용초다 개벌 가르고 추이나 그지 지금 서로지
낭주 모르셔야 돼. 낭주 모르서는 다 낭배 추에서는 시단 되지래스. 세다 추에서는 양대 가가래. 다 진짜 가서 따뜻다 되네. 생일이 되는 낭상 모시고 되니. 티셔버로 와리. 전부 능바 현在지는 생일 거디는 누구로 와. 진짜 따로서 누구 말래. 진 능바셔서 되는 거로 와. 다 추도 만데 아니 상주세야 계셔도 디데신 따로 막 현달에 쳐버려 말아. 때문에 낭주 모두 시야 돼. 낭주 캐링이지 모두 신 모두 시야져야래.
그럼 무슨 숨바이나 또 베베 치소나 난충 모트나 낭다디다 아니 다 치게기 치소나로 난충 모트 낭탄지요라기라.
아, 네.
낭다 디니 달라.
그래서 시제는 모두 시야 디데시고다 상주세야 되잖아 가지다. 저 추도 뭔데 상주세 도와. 가지고 먹고 좀 자듯이 좀 말스. 얘가 그거 투모로. 그래봐. 콘도시 좀 말스. 자. 때도 쉬는 거 계속 가요 말아. 콘도시는 달에 최심에 계속 가요 말. 그래서 소소 정바디 침장도 제가 지금 안에 차도 가지 유모를 뒤가 가가 위에서 모두 타고 와. 모두 타고에다 티터 시에서는 인디카도가 지금 시기문도 상하지 다 내가 팬바 여치죠 모두 가서 낭주군이 모르시고 누구라 낭주군이 모르시는 땅은 기디 레기르도 낭주 맞아 그래 레기르로 왔어야 되라 저 저것이 이거 하고서는 레기르시 다 레기르디 거는 특바 심좀 첨부 심무 거리 있는 거 뒤는 다 내기 랑도서야 좀 말해 디기나서 레기네 말해 어디가 들어와 어디에 모두 단다 치게 최단의 케미는데 낭주 어디서는 페이지 기타시야 말다 낭배 인데시고 낭배 세르시다 디데시리스 따도시다 디데시리스 엔다 치어서야 된 디제 레스야 지다 제가서 그런 누구들 낭배 디데 누구르세야 현데 해줘로 뭐 이것은 피야 디데 해도 뭐라 저한 가지 말래나 쉬셔야 뭐라 쉬 년보다 저한 가지 인심이 해야 되는 거다로 어때
Okay. Okay, the question was like what Anila was saying, asking about is like when the Geshe give a teaching, what's the difference that when you give a teaching towards the main Buddhist practitioner, like in the Tibetan society or in a Western society, that what's the difference that we give the Geshe. So she was asking this question: what's the difference between giving teaching to Westerners and main Tibetans? And the Geshe is answered about that. In general, that when Geshe give teachings, actually normally the Buddhist is divided into three aspects or categories. So, explain most of the master when they teach Westerners, they divide into three parts. One is Buddhist philosophy and Buddhist Buddhist science, Buddhist philosophy, and Buddhist religion. So these three together is try to teach that way, and then more on like when the master when they give a teaching to Westerners, it's not very much based on the true Buddhist religion way. It's most on the philosophical way, and also on top of it is in a free thinker, not as based on true Buddhist religion. It's as a free thinker about based on law of cause and effect, based on what you call the how to practice love and compassion. You have to have a good heart, and the law of cause and effect. These are nothing touch based on any religion. So it's a based on the free thinker. Any believer can accept that the belief. So that's why most of the Buddhist master will try to teach those things on the Westerners, because if a true Buddhist practitioner, if the one is a true Buddhist practitioner, then firstly, because you have to understand about the like, for example, the Four Noble Truths, and then together with you have to know about the death, rebirth, and incarnations of previous life and next life, life after death. So without having this true understanding and have like no doubt about those things, then you can truly base on Buddhist religion, then you can give a teaching based on that. So that's why right now when Geshe give a teaching, it's based on more on a philosophical way, in a it's a free thinker way, like it's in so that's why what the Geshe give a teachings. So that's why this is a different way. Okay, I think we're going to stop here. My work for a week is done. So we will recite this Manjushri and then after that in English and then Vietnamese. Gangye loje dibne dinde nida namda rabze. Jinye denge Geshe zeche nike tokra lebam ze kanda sebe zera mare mendom dunye geze. Rozo gen la boje da ze yan la e zhujo yan dens. Rodra che ro nye mo nye long lege cha ro zeze. Mare menze dungyo nye go chinye che zerel den. Tenen da che sa che ta se yen de le zo ge se tu ye chu ta chu da chu ni gen de da le min sel jam be le yang la en de o mara bazar de mara bazar mara bazar mara bazar o mara bazar de mara bazar de mara bazar na di 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 tse den ke ge ken ra ve se da le de mo men ba rab se ne ka da den che shun lo to pa lo de po be na wa tse do se lo de ja zo yu zhong pe ka ke san bon yang dong la je de be ba zhen la dong wa ke chu ta nian dan gen je la zhe wa de obeisant to my guru and protector, Sumanju Shiri, who at the heart of scriptural texts, symbolic of all these are, whose intelligence shines forth as the sun, unclouded by delusions, so forth as the sun, unclouded by delusion. Sun. The horse of wisdom, hewing down suffering wherever sprout appears, clearing away the darkness of ignorance, you who have been pure from the beginning, who have completed the stages, achieving the highest perfections of a bodhisattva, whose princely body is adorned with the 112 marks of a Buddha, I bow down to you, Manjushri, Om Arapasanadi, O compassionate one, with the brilliance of your wisdom, illuminate the darkness enclosing my mind, enlighten my intelligence and wisdom so that I may gain insight into Buddha's words and the texts that explain again. Your name purpose all directions. You are permission and powerful and upholding the precious doctrine. To you, O Lord on Tenzin Wonder, respectfully I pray.
Nhất tâm kính lễ Đức Văn Thù Sư Lợi, bậc đại trí ngài điều phục hai chướng ngại, tựa nhật quan lan tỏa khắp mười phương, bậc thực chứng chân nghĩa màu rốt ráo, từ tim ngài Bát Nhã Kinh thủ hộ nhiệm màu, cõi luân hồi chúng sanh thọ nghiệp báo, bị ngăn che bởi phiền não vô minh, sở hữu 60 pháp âm thù thắng, cùng đại bi ngài hóa độ chúng sanh, tựa từ mẫu chăm lo cho quý tử. Tiếng rồng vang ngày thức tỉnh hữu tình, thoát khỏi vòng luân hồi nghiệp báo. Gươm trí tuệ ngài chặt đứt vô minh, tận diệt muôn vàn khổ đau cùng ách nạn. Trường tử Như Lai tối thắng toàn giác, ngài an trụ nơi thập địa pháp vân, báu thân ngài trang nghiêm thanh tịnh, 112 tứ hảo Như Lai, đê đầu đảnh lễ Đức Văn Thù Sư Lợi, cúi xin ngài tận diệt ám chướng vô minh. Om Arapasanadi. Ban pháp lực diệt phiền não vô minh, được trí sáng con thâm nhập nghĩa màu, pháp vi diệu cùng muôn vàn luận giải, như rượu hương ngọt ngào từ sen trắng, đàn xanh nơi trí thủ thắng đại dương, hàng thiện căn như ong mật thọ nương, hồng danh ngài khắp mười phương quảng bá, đấng thiện xảo uy dũng bảo tồn pháp bảo vô giá. Nam mô Lốp Giang Tenzin Quang Đắc, xin cung kính trì niệm.
Gewa de ye nyuro yando yanda la ma sa je do juro Dowa Je Chai Mai Lu Ba De Ye Sa La Gu cho sem cho rinpoche ma ge pa nam ke jro che ke wa nyam ba me ba yang gone gondo be war sho to ni ta wa rinpoche ma ge pa nam ke jro che ke wa nyam ba me ba yang gone gondo be war sho sa she be je jun she me to tam re ra lin she nian de gen ban de san je shen do me de yu wa yi zhou gen nam da shen lai che ba ra sho gan re ra we kor we shin kam de ben dan de wa nga le jun we ne jen re se wa ten zen jia zo yi Jabe se de bardo tenjuro chi ye daim guru redna mendela kane ya ta ya me